when I watch that video, I get emotional. And because for me, I remember when this thing started 5 years ago, and it was literally just a few of us. Like when you say 145 people, that's a lot, right? There were 4 or 5 of us that started this project, and while we imagined it growing big, it was literally impossible to imagine what you just saw. And the only reason that it's possible, literally, is because of people like you. You know, all we're doing is fulfilling a need that the American people have, a need that the founders foresaw, right? They saw this. In their wisdom, they knew the time would come. It was obvious to them that at some point the federal government would become overbearing and would have to be restrained. I repeat this story over and over because it cannot be repeated too many times. September 15th, 1787, Article 5 Day is what I call it. That's the day Colonel George Mason stands up and he addresses the people assembled at that convention. Now, I want you to think about it. You know, it's been a sweltering summer in Philadelphia. You've heard the stories. The windows are all boarded up so nobody can see what's going on in there. They've been in there all summer. There's 2 days to go before the end of convention. They're done. They're literally done. They've drafted the entire document. They've argued about every single point in that document, dotted every I, crossed every T, except for Mason stands and he tells them they've made a terrible mistake. I imagine they weren't really happy to hear from him. By the way, he said more than anybody else at that convention, so they probably really were tired of hearing from him. Mason stands and he addresses the men assembled and he says, we've made a terrible mistake. We've given the federal government, through the Congress, the power to propose amendments should we deem them necessary, but we haven't given that same power to the people acting through the states. And then he asked a question. The question he asked is, are we so naive that we believe that a federal government that becomes a tyranny will propose amendments to restrain its own tyranny? Man, I wish we had video because I guarantee you they laughed. Right? Just absurd. No tyranny has ever restrained itself in all of human history. We've got no examples of that. That's not human nature. And so they knew what was coming. And in fact, I know they laughed. I actually know it for sure. And the reason I know it is because we have Madison's notes. Madison's notes say something very unusual. He talks about what Mason said, and then his notes reflect 2 Latin words, very small words, nin com. It means no comment. There's literally no comment and no debate. It's a pretty radical proposition, giving the states the power to propose amendments, right, to amend the Constitution. It's pretty radical. Not one person in that room stood up and said, oh my gosh, Colonel Mason, that's a ridiculous idea, or we need to edit that. Nothing like that. And in fact, what the records show is that it was unanimously voted to put the second clause of Article 5 into the Constitution. That clause where they gave you the power to reform the federal government when it got out of control. And very specifically, and I think this is important for the legislators in the audience, they gave you guys the power. It's really interesting. The most powerful people in the federal system, in our entire system, the most powerful people in the government, more power than anybody else, not the president, not Congress, not supposed to be the courts, sometimes they take that power, are you legislators, state legislators. It's really interesting because you're the only people who have the power to call a convention, to propose amendments, and to ratify those amendments, thereby altering the very structure of government, saving our government from itself, saving our system from itself, because they knew what happens to republics. They all do this, and they wanted to give us a chance to cheat history. But they put that power in you guys. And I often ask myself, you know, why? Why did the founders do the things they did? I think this one's obvious, because they were different. I mean, fundamentally, most of these folks that were in that convention, they'd served on town councils and county governments, and they've been in the colonial legislature, so they understood government close to the people. It's not that they thought that you guys would be better than everybody else, that state legislators were better people. It's just they understood governance close to the people. They understood that you were responsive, you were collaborative, and you were accountable to your local constituents. And look, man, did they predict it? Is Washington, D.C. accountable to us now? No, not at all. They predicted this. It's way distant from us. Most of the laws, rules, and regulations being written by bureaucracies that we have absolutely no control over, right? People who are not accountable to us in any way. So they knew this kind of stuff was going to come. Did they know how bad it would get? I don't think so. I think that's impossible to see how bad it's become from their perspective. But they knew they needed to put this power, the ultimate power, in your hands as representatives of the people. So I'm really proud because that's what's happened today. 3.75 million people across the country have stepped up in support of this. And in places like Arkansas and Illinois and Iowa, and yeah, even California and Texas, there are millions of people who have stepped up. We have people in every single state legislative district in the nation. That's an incredible statistic, never been done by a grassroots organization before. I'm going to close with this. I want you guys to understand we're still a grassroots organization. If people ask me, where's the office? Where's the headquarters? And you guys have probably all seen me in the barn in California. I don't have a barn anymore, but that was the headquarters. Now I have a library in my house. That's the headquarters now. We don't have a fancy office building. We don't intend to have a fancy office building because we're just grassroots folks. That's all we are. Our goal in the end is to restore the republic and create the largest self-governing grassroots army in the nation. That's who you guys are. It's on your shoulders. We'll do our best to support you and provide you with the tools you need and the support you need. You have great leadership in the state. I notice you're wearing your, so he has an award that he's wearing that we designed for, it's called a challenge coin. We designed it for kind of the pinnacle of grassroots activists. We like to recognize grassroots activists who go above and beyond. Bud got that award. It makes me glad to see those when I travel the country. We used to just give out, you got another challenge coin recipient? Who's Jack Gilbert. Jack's wearing a challenge coin. We gave out challenge coins. You guys are in the military, know about challenge coins. Officers give these things out. We created those. Then we found people were carrying them around and showing them to people, so we made the pins to go with them so you can wear your pins. Because you guys are the top of the pyramid. Our organization is shaped like an upside-down pyramid. Me and Tom, we're on the bottom. Our job is just to support y'all. You guys will make this thing tick. So now it's my pleasure and my honor to introduce somebody who you guys know from his time in the United States Senate. He's one of the few guys that went into the Senate, term limited himself, left, was never corrupted by the system, didn't get rich off the system. He went there to serve his state, his constituents, and the nation. He stayed true blue. He's become an incredible friend and a mentor to me, and it is my privilege to introduce Tom Coburn.